This podcast may contain certain forward-looking statements concerning Tri-State's plans, performance, and strategies. Actual results may differ materially because of numerous factors, and Tri-State undertakes no obligation to update these forward-looking statements. We urge you to review Tri-State's filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission for a discussion of these factors.
What we're building now is going to serve our members into the 2060s. And isn't that exciting? It's not just our kids, but our grandkids. They're going to benefit from the stuff we're doing today.
Welcome to Western Watts, the podcast where Tri-State and our cooperative members explore what it takes to power the West. From reliability to wildfire mitigation, we dive into the energy issues that matter most to rural, agricultural, and mountain communities across Colorado, Nebraska, New Mexico, and Wyoming. Thank you for joining us for the Western Watts podcast. I'm Elizabeth Schilling, joined by
Julia Perry.
And we have the pleasure today of interviewing Mr. Duane Highley, CEO of Tri-State Generation and Transmission Association. Thanks for being here, Duane.
Thank you for having me.
With 2024 firmly behind us, what are you excited about in 2025 for Tri-State and for our industry?
I'm so excited for 2025, and we're at this point now where things that had been planned are coming to fruit, and now it's time to execute. For me, when we're building things for the future, that is the most exciting and fun times as a G&T. It's the core of us. And after all these years of planning, now we can go build. And these RFPs have been issued. I'm super excited about being able to get hundreds of megawatts of solar and wind and battery under construction for our members, because what we're building now is going to serve our members into the 2060s. And isn't that exciting? It's not just our kids, but our grandkids. They're going to benefit from the stuff we're doing today. Sometimes it's hard to get excited about these long-term things because they're just so far out in the future. It seems like maybe it'll never happen, but that's what we do. We invest for generations. We build something that's going to last decades. You can tell them they'll have reliable power supply, and don't you want to be part of that?
I will say, on a personal note, I'm really excited for batteries just because they're named such insane things. Like you have molten salt, you have iron, air, and lead acid batteries. Does this not sound like a trio of like metal bands?
Okay, I'll get out my electric guitar for that one.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to do the soundtrack to that album.
We're going to do the jingle.
Yeah.
Can I do the jingle? Can I do that?
You're first in line.
Yeah.
You mentioned that Tri-State's making investments that last for generations. What's the benefit of our members making these decisions together versus going out on their own?
We make a commitment to the member. We're going to serve your load no matter whether it grows or shrinks, and we're going to manage that with all the other members. You can tell them they'll have reliable power supply and that they'll be sharing risk with their neighbors instead of out there on their own. We're going to be building things that will last beyond 2050 now. We're making investments that'll go on through what we say at least to 2066. So how about we have a contract extension? And members are like, well, wait a minute. Why would I want to do that? It's because you're doing something for your kids and your grandkids.
At the end of the day, would you say that the reason that all these individual cooperatives came together still is there? It's stronger when everybody is working together versus going it alone. We haven't lost the value of doing this as a cooperative.
Exactly. I think about Tri-State as not a large utility. We're the middle to small size utility, really, if you look how big some of these entities are. And if you're not at least as big as Tri-State, I don't think you can really play the way you need to play in the markets. And to be able to buy and sell and hedge risk, you've got to have a certain amount of scale. If you're on your own and you suddenly get opportunity to serve a big load, you got to say, oh, wait a minute, I got to go see if I can get power supply because I wasn't planning for that. So now I got to see if I can build it fast enough or buy it from somebody. And then if you're serving a large load and they go away, you got to say, oh, crud, I just built a big power plant to serve that, and now I got to pay for it, and they're gone. How am I going to pay for it? My rates are going to skyrocket. If you're part of a G&T, don't worry about any of that. Because you're sharing that risk with all your neighbors, and there's so many of them, you're not stuck with that. You just pay for what you're using. And I think that's one of the most important aspects of G&T that gets missed, right? Now you have an enormous obligation you didn't have before, which is to always match your resources to your load.
Most likely, too, you're still going to have to buy energy from Tri-State, so why not get it at wholesale?
And again, this goes back to the contract extension question. Why should we do this? And it's really about sharing risk with your neighbors that also have the same business model you do. So instead of going out and getting in bed with a company whose whole goal in life is to make a profit every moment possible, how about you partner with people who are in the same nonprofit sense as you are? Rural economies, rural people rely more on each other. Urban people forget about it, right? I can just go to my apartment every night and I don't ever have to talk to anybody. I don't ever have to ask anybody for anything. And I'll go to the store and it'll all serve me. But if you're in a rural area, I'm pretty sure you're relying on your neighbors. Maybe you can't get your driveway graded. They're going to help you. I know all of our farmer and rancher and small business board members are thinking that way. And they bring that value to the board table, too, to say, it's probably a good idea to share that with our neighbors and let's work together. Maybe working together is a good idea.
Who can say? Let's make it a business model, maybe.
Yeah. How about that? I like the idea.
How about that?
A big push in 2024 was to secure funding to help build all this new generation and ramp up in 2025. Can you speak to that?
So I'm also really excited about the opportunity for us to access $2.5 billion, it's a hard number to say, $2.5 billion in federal funding over the next 10 years, or not even 10, 6 years. Under the New Era program, it's going to be completely transformational to Tri-State. And I'm so excited we have this opportunity to achieve these funds. Helps clean up our balance sheet, eliminate stranded investment. It builds a capital stack, as Todd would say, of the lowest cost capital any entity could access. We're going to have a lot of zero interest rate debt and 2% debt and even some Treasury minus an 8. And no entity can borrow for those rates. So that positions us to serve our members into, again, decades in the future with extremely low-cost money. Now, currently, there's a concern about this because of the change in administration. I think the new administration cares about rural America, and I think rural America maybe helped get the new administration in office. To me, it's in the best interest of an incoming administration who wants to make sure rural America isn't ignored to say, keep that money flowing if you keep anything flowing. And in particular, New Era funding, because it's going directly to, in this case, it's going to nonprofit entities like Tri-State, and we don't keep that money. Every dollar we save ends up saving a member at the end of the line money. It goes back into the pockets of our rural consumers. It's not 100%, nothing in life is, but it's going to be transformational for us to be able to receive those funds. Combining that with the direct pay tax credit means this next tranche of generation we're building for our members is going to be some of the lowest costs that they could ever achieve. And again, it serves our members decades into the future.
Tell us about the nature of that funding. How is that allocated to Tri-State? How do we use that?
What's really cool about the New Era funding is our team, first of all, found a way to take what would have just been straightforward grants and amplify its impact on our rural members by taking the majority of the money as low interest rate loans, which actually are paid back. So the government really is just loaning money to us that they get back. There's really not a direct cash payout. It's the benefit of having a lower interest rate to our members that is the benefit that flows back to them. But a key consideration to remember is this really isn't free money. It gets paid back.
I think it might be good to mention that we're a not-for-profit. Typically, all of those tax breaks were completely unavailable to us anyway. We're finally at a point where Tri-State is able to build their own facilities, which is pretty wild.
Our members are taxpayers just like every other taxpayer. And sometimes the rural areas feel like they don't really get any money back, so to speak, in that tax revenue game. If our members are out there paying taxes, they don't want to see it all go to downtown Denver. They want to see some of it come back to the rural area. And one of the best ways that can happen is to make sure that there's some funding coming to help them with their power supply, to help them with stranded investments, to help them have a leg up. You talk about co-ops nationally serve the majority of the persistent poverty counties in this country. And Tri-State's no exception. We have a lot of those areas, the people we work for, a lot of them struggle to pay their utility bills. And they're also taxpayers. So why shouldn't they get something back from their government? It is great. As a nonprofit, it never seemed fair to me that we weren't going to be able to take advantage of tax credits. Why should the for-profit people get a tax credit to build something that the government says is in the national interest and we want to incentivize? So it's just, to me, was never fair. I'm really glad we got direct pay tax credit passed now. It costs the government exactly the same, but for some reason we couldn't access that money. So yay, now we've got it. We can go out and build Axial Basin and Dolores Canyon and many other things for our members and get the same benefit that the for-profit people have always been getting.
So it sounds like this government funding is going to help us build more generation projects, but how does it help us with cost control?
I'm extremely proud of the work that this organization has done to try and figure out how to keep costs under control. And again, you go back to 2019 and before, that was an issue the members were preaching with us about. They were concerned about cost and concerned about cost rising. And they were saying Tri-State's not competitive in the marketplace. I heard that from all kinds of members and non-members. And then when you look at the metrics, you say, yeah, Tri-State was a high-cost provider amongst GNTs. Now, there's a reason why we are, and that's because we have more transmission than anybody. And we serve some of the most remote parts of this country, which means we have to have more miles of transmission per megawatt sold per household. And that's a cost burden we have to carry that other people don't. They're not going to give us a break for that and say, oh, just because you're serving us in the mountains, we're willing to pay twice as much for our power. No, they want to be just as competitive as Xcel in downtown Denver, with 30 to 50 customers per mile. Because we're nonprofit, because we work for members and we focus on cost, we can deliver power that is, in most instances, absolutely directly comparable to an investor-owned utility serving 10 times the density we serve. And that shouldn't even be the case. And yet it is. So it's that focus. And then you look at what the team has done since 2017 to say we've only increased cost of net at 2%. And again, I'll say, is there another utility anybody can think of that's done that? Certainly not my cable television provider, not my cell phone provider, nor my natural gas provider, nor my water. None of those haven't gone up at least double digits, if not doubling since that period of time. And here we are with only a 2% net increase. And then we start work on a 2025 budget. And the team comes in with the first cut is, and we're hoping to keep it below double digits. Maybe it'll be 9. I'm like 9 point something percent, please, not 10. And then the next meeting it's 7%. The next meeting it's 5%. The next meeting it's, and we don't need a rate increase. I was like, what happened here? Everybody worked really hard and redid plans that people thought were sacred, frankly. We couldn't touch the mine plan, for example. But we had to say, what about the mine plan? And I regret anything that impacts employees. But as a result of that, look, we can maintain rates, which is really important to our members. And some of them are struggling to pay their bills, right? So we do have a responsibility to them to keep our costs in line and be good stewards of their money. And I think that's what we've done here. I'm really proud of everybody that worked on that.
So in your position, you have to be able to trust that you've put the right leadership team in place. You can't do everything to lead this organization on your own. Tell me about your leadership team. How have they been moving Tri-State forward?
I've never been more blessed to have such a strong leadership team than today. And everybody is just working together so well. First of all, they trust each other. And that goes so far in the senior staff room when we're talking about what to do next. And everybody can participate too. Everybody can weigh in. And I think it's just a tremendous strength that every member of the senior team is willing to listen to their peers and say, oh, that's a good suggestion. Even if it didn't come from engineering and I'm an engineer, I'm willing to hear it. They got a lot of tenacity. The word everybody uses is probably grossly overused, but they do have it. And so they're willing to go out there and fight really hard. And that's evidenced by what happened the last 4 years, right? There were some dark days for us even 2 years ago, even 1 year ago. It's, oh my gosh, what's the future going to be? I never saw a team fight harder than during those days. That's when you'd expect people just to be giving up and saying, I can't see a path out of here. I don't see how this is going to work. I'm done. And instead they're like, I'm going to fight all the harder. And they did, and they prevailed. And so I'm super proud of all their effort. I'm proud to be part of them and for us to be doing this together. And I just look at the accomplishments and say, yeah, through a lot of grit and determination, we finally got through it and now have this beautiful path forward that says we're going to get to execute on all these new things for our members for decades to come. It gives you so much gratification to know you've been part of that.
What is it about Tri-State that inspires that level of tenacity?
I think there's a virtuous cycle here, and then success breeds more success, and then people want to be part of that. I'm especially excited when I see somebody who leaves Tri-State and then later comes back to Tri-State. That is a big win because that's an enormous validation to vote to say, yeah, I tried the other thing and now I've decided it's better here.
I think people actually believe and care about the mission. Like, as corny as it sounds, serving people at the end of the line, I think people actually believe it and get bit by the bug and they want to do something meaningful.
I wish more people could come with me to the meetings like I had this morning. I went to visit with Midwest Electric, our member in Nebraska. And those are the members. That's who we serve. And see their board, and that's the members, right? Those are all people. And they tell me how much they appreciate Tri-State. And I wish every employee could be there sitting with me to hear that when they say, you guys do a great job for us. That's not to me, that's to everybody, right? They're thanking Tri-State. They're thanking every employee here. And every one of us, I remember one time I talked about our mission, and somebody said, I don't have anything to do with reliability or affordability. Is every one of us does. Whatever you're doing is part of that machine that's making that happen. I just wish that they could all hear the wonderful compliments I hear from the members when I'm out with them and they talk about how much they trust Tri-State and how proud they are of what we're doing. So that's to the credit of everybody here.
Keep that part in. Amplify that part. So to wrap up, what are you listening to right now?
Yeah, Foy Vance, he's been a real recent favorite. In fact, the album he did with a live orchestra is amazing. Just completed the Undaunted Courage. Isn't that the one about Lewis and Clark and their explorations of the West? And then that inspired me when I heard them talk about Zebulon Pike. So I also listened to the Zebulon Pike autobiography, which is very relevant for Colorado because he explored into the Arkansas Valley, in fact. And now Noah Webster is inspiring me because he's like a founding father who wasn't an official founding father. So I want to learn more about that. When I finish that one, I'll be teeing up Ulysses Grant, the General Grant. That'll
Sounds
be the
like
next
you
one.
have a very long commute.
I wish I could use a longer commute to get through these, because I'm telling you, the Undaunted Courage audiobook was like 28 hours. So it takes you a while. You got to listen to it at 1.5x or something at least to get through it.
That's your secret.
I listen to mine on 1.25.
So whoever listens to this podcast is probably going to listen to it on at least 2x.
We'll just automatically place it at 1.25 in honor of
I think
that.
some people do that. I think there is a little bit of that gaming going on.
They're like, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Hurry this up.
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in to Western Watts. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, or on our website at tristate.coop/WWpod. We'll catch you next time.